Hello and welcome to the review of Gielinor Games Episode 5. We're in a very fitting location today, just across the ditch where some snakery goes down. And that is right on the money for today's episode. I couldn't wait to talk about the dramas, the politics that happened in this week. I've slithered my way through to Episode 5. This video will contain heavy spoilers for Gielinor Games, the behind the scenes, that sort of thing. So go and watch it on Soup's YouTube channel, one of the best things on YouTube. Not even old school RuneScape, just YouTube. I'm going to start today's episode by answering two questions I always get. The first of which is, do I watch reality TV? And the answer is no, not really. When Soup sent through the brief for Gielinor Games, he specifically mentioned Survivor and The Challenge, and I've seen people mention this so much, like, you must watch this, like, you're like this specific character on this specific season, but I've never seen it. It's American, like, it's just not really a thing in the UK, but I think I might need to watch it a little bit. Who knows? Who knows? And but there is one show I have watched, and that was The Circle. I watched that in the pandemic, and it's a British reality TV one where the contestants can't see each other. They're in individual rooms and they're messaging all the time. So maybe got a bit of inspiration for that, for like the DMs and relationship building, that sort of stuff. And yeah, it gets very drama. Would recommend. I enjoyed that a lot. And then the second question is, would I ever go on one of these real life shows? And the answer to that is definitely not. And the reason is because in these shows, people always have their sob stories and stuff, and like, realistically, you're not going to be like taking the money from like a single mother with like cancer and 10 children or something like that. The good thing about Gielinor Games is no one's got a sob story. It's not really that deep if anyone goes home. And plus, I wouldn't really want to put my face on television and become public enemy number one because but when I'm not necessarily, it's not obvious that I'm playing a character like I am with SoloMission in YouTube. So yeah, there are your answers. Let's get down to business. Don't have time to play around. What is this? It's episode 5 of the Gielinor Games, and we are looking incredibly polarized compared to previous weeks. Remember, this is how I thought the games were going. It's not too far away from reality, and yeah, through my lens, so it explains my decisions. Now, we have two big sides, but the people in the middle, we have Boaty, who doesn't really engage with messages with anybody, and then we have Will, who I essentially confirmed was a solo operator from last week, from my DMs with him, from EVscape, in the banning call, that sort of thing. And then we've got me playing both sides, strong ties to Frames, strong ties to EVscape. Then on either side, we've got two teams arranged. I've got the top 4 from each as people I guarantee are in those sides, and then we've got Tasty and Zoe on this side, pretty confident that they're there, not necessarily in the same chats or anything, and then we've got Victim and Skill Specs as well. Same scenario, Frames told me that they have them, but they haven't had them the entire time, so, you know, we wait to see whether they do actually vote as they should do, because you can't trust words in this game, can you? And that brings me on to this week's first DMs, and these are actually from the day after episode 4. So, in that episode, Sinferna and Hanani were eliminated, and Framed messages me saying Tasty is with us now after that because he literally asked. Now, Tasty is, I've got him on this side, Frame's on this side. Is he coming over? Is he trying to play both sides? But I think it's because Sinferna's just disappeared. These three, Sinferna, Tasty, and Zoe, were a little dynamic trio, and they just cut off one of those arms, and it's like panic station. So I say that back. And like, Tasty is with everybody. Zero trust for him. He stabbed Evie in the back week 1. I should have said week 2 there. Be very careful. And I'm alluding to when Tasty was in a call with Hanani and Will, and I steamrolled them and put Evie in the banning when Tasty was supposedly on the same side as EVscape. And I got confirmation from Evie that that was a thing. He either votes with us or becomes a target. He's got no info. So Framed is like, you know, you've got to welcome people, but you can't just say, fuck off, because potential allies can be made. So Framed elaborates a bit further, saying he thinks we've got Tasty and Zoe now, but just seeing where their heads are at and seeing how they vote this week, which is very interesting. Potential little snakes in the grass trying to move over to a different alliance. And I said, yeah, they're probably panicking because Sinferna was in the banning. She's their girl. And then he says something very interesting. Tasty thinks that I am together with EVscape. Now, this is where my play up until this point really gives me strength, because I can just knock that down straight away. Like, I am working with EVscape, but I don't want Frame to know that at all. I want Frame to think that I have their interests at heart. So I say back, if I was with EV, Jimmy and Settled would be one tick put into the banning last week, which is true. And that's a demonstration that I'm not actually with EVscape, right? And that's why it was so important what I was doing in week 4 by protecting Frame's side. Frame then says we could literally get it to where we entirely wipe out their alliance, referring to EVscape's side, and then dissolve ours and play fairly. Play fairly in the Gielinor games. Come on now, Kevin. And then he keeps going and says, this offer is extended to you. My goal is to have Jimmy 8-sat settled and framed. Jimmy 8-sat settled and framed. These 4 are the main 4 on this side of the alliance, and have me as well in the final 5. So he's willing to go all the way. Remember, these are just words. But, like, we've been good to each other so far. They haven't done anything towards me. I have actually been on their side. I had those backs last week 100%. Hopefully he sees that. And then he says, the ball's in my court. Sounds good to me. And then he says, he confirms that you could have sent me in, but you didn't, so I trust you. So I have built trust there with Framed. Great relationship. And yeah, that's why last week was so important. Okay, that was far too wholesome. Let's get back to me being a rat as usual. And I've got a message from Mr. EVscape on the entire different side of the game saying, you're going to have to carry whatever voting mischief we get up to today because I'm sick as a dog and my brain isn't working. And then we start discussing what the challenge might be. This is a little behind the scenes. Soup, an hour or 2 beforehand, will send like, this is what you need this week. So an inventory setup, anything done on your account, that sort of thing. So he's like, you need 10 mil, guys. Meet me in 1 hour. So we're just like, could be PvP, could be fight caves again, surely not again. And then it's always speculation beforehand. You sort of like, I don't know, you just think about what the challenge could be. We also get some more valuable information here saying, skill specs just hit me up for a team. Do we try? And then he's talking about, does he try and make a new one with a new person? And then that is very interesting. So I say he might be playing both sides. I can't remember what's going on. Do you know what I mean? You always got to downplay how much you actually know. My brain isn't working. And I said there were stray votes last week, so I want to sow some seeds of confusion. And now that's interesting because before this episode has even started filming, we've got rumors that Skill Specs is running around, like potentially going over to this side. Framed confirmed that he voted this way last week, and that does make sense in the votes. And then we've also got Frame saying that Tasty and Zoe want to come over to this side. So none of these bottom like dwellers down here, they can't be trusted. It's like, it's looking sketchy, and that's good for me because I can't be trusted and I'm between teams as well. So, you know, confusion is brilliant. So moving on to this week's challenge, it was a solo challenge. I always fancy myself when it's a solo challenge. But the thing is, it means you have to beat 14 other people, which is a lot of people. And in this specific one, we had to kill every single wilderness boss in 1 inventory, so preparation was key. But the problem is, we genuinely had 3 or 4 minutes to prepare. The prep time went super, super quick in this one, so there were a lot of pitfalls to fall into. Like, did people realize you could buy a mace and a mace was super good? Lots of people didn't. Then people didn't even put enough ether in their mace, another thing to fall into. Then the poison from Venenatis, not bringing stamina, getting KO'd by a boss, and then not having an alternative food source. And there were only 2 players which avoided all of those pitfalls, which were myself and Torvesta. This was my setup. I went for the lobster pots and the dark fishing bait. It's really hard to tell how much food you're going to have to consume to kill all the wilderness bosses. I actually think if I had brought brews instead of all these switches, like a cape swap, the bait, the stuff, the salve, etc. I've got 2 brews on the floor, maybe 1 less Sanfu and 1 less combat. I actually think I could have done it in 1 inventory, even without safe spotting. I didn't know how to safe spot any of them, but you just don't know. And I was thinking, if I kill every boss, I'm probably going to win or at least be at the top. I was a little less confident when I came to fish dark crabs because this honestly took so long. I don't know if I was doing something wrong. I don't know. I've never really fished dark crabs, but slow as. Obviously, Alex brought the sweets. I forgot those criminal mistake. If I had brought them, we would have been very close because we had the book swap and all the rest of it. So yeah, we end up coming in second. I join back in the call and find out Torvesta's done them all, but then I swear Soup baits me because he asks for my exact time, and I'm like, oh god, maybe it is actually close, but alas, we fail. Winner Torvesta, unfortunately, because I know Torvesta was out to get me. Only 2 of us getting 7, and that is just all that time. It's just the fishing crabs time. The sweets were the strat. That was very smart of him to bring. If I had actually won here, it would have been a tough spot for me because I, on my own, have to choose someone to put in. And probably would have chosen Boaty, I think, because he's between alliances. Maybe Tasty or Zoe or Jay if I was able to prove that they were being sneaky. But I think Boaty because he's a strong player, and realistically, the more bannings you can get someone like that in, the better, because you don't want them to be in the final. So I'm languishing here in second, which means that I can actually be put into the banning for the first time since week 1, because I've won for 3 weeks in a row. Nearly got the 4th week in a row here, which is incredible. I get 2 votes, which is something which was absolutely huge for me this week. Not for sending who I want into the banning, but for just keeping my cover unblown. And we all know what happens. Framed comes to me and is like, EV skip? Yep, I'm fine with that. He thinks that EV's going to have loads of votes and EV's going to go in, and then Torvesta will put Framed in. And then on the other side, we have EV skip saying they're voting for Jimmy. And then I push back a bit on this one. I'm like, why Jimmy? Go for somebody better, because I don't see Jimmy as a threat, really. I'm completely fine with him staying in. And then he does make a good point that he got an extra point from coming last. And coming last, it does actually make a big difference. So I think that was the move from them. I think it was the right decision, but I'm just trying to get people who are better put into the banning, really. And then EVscape makes a great point that they're trying to insta-vote me into the banning, so I might want Jimmy to go in, which is very true. And then he goes on to say that Torvesta is out for your head. I'm trying to explain why he should go for the other alliance, and he's just like, solo, 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 which is not good news for me. So I have to start turning this screw here. And I said, if Torvesta votes me, I'll go to the frame team. I can't have that. You've got to understand it. And Evie's on my side. He's trying to convince Torvesta just to keep me in. And then I just really ramp up. I'm like, you guys don't want me as your enemy. I came second, first, second. That would be dumb as fuck. And then he's like, Joel, settle down. I'm on your side because I really don't want to be put into a banning. And I need to let them know that I can be very vindictive. Here's a little clip of EVscape talking about this week from last week's interview I did with him.
Oh, bro, it was so hard. There was so many weeks where, like, because Torvesta just wanted your head, bro. He was right out for you. And I was just like, oh, no.
So it's becoming a tale of 2 alliances. Now, I then receive a DM, which is probably the most important DM I receive for this entire week, and it's from It's William asking who I'm voting for. Like, what's up, Will? I swear this guy has nobody. He's just like reaching out, and then so I just play depressed, like, yeah, I don't know who I'm gonna vote for. I've won every week since week 1, so I'm probably gonna get banned, and I can't be bothered. Playing all depressed. And then Will suggests that because we came second and third, we both have 2 votes and we could use them on the same person. Like, I just don't, like, why is Will trying to work with me? I literally just banned this guy last week. What a guy. So funny. But this just tells me that maybe I am his closest friend. Even, like, maybe he is just speaking to fucking nobody. And his actions really show me that. So I'm just like, yeah, depressed. And then he's talking about Jimmy, and I'm like, I want Jimmy to stay in, which is true because I think he's beatable. He's good comedic value and all that sort of stuff. And then Will just says, oh, Soup's put me on the spot. And he votes for Foe, which is completely random. And this is even more confirmation to me that Will really is just like swimming around in the middle with nobody to call a friend right now. And that information is critical because that's 2 votes going for Foe when none of these guys are going to be voting for Foe. So we all know what I end up doing. I split my votes down the middle, 1 on Jimmy, 1 on EVscape. Now, even though I really want EVscape to stay, I have to put a vote on him here because I have to sow seeds of confusion. I can't have anyone finding out that I'm playing both sides. It really isn't great for me that EVscape goes into the banning here, though. I really want him to come back, because if he leaves, I lose that point of contact with all of that side of the alliance. And yeah, It was a risky play for me sending one vote to him, because if I had put both my votes on Jimmy, Jimmy goes in here. I'm essentially the deciding factor in this. Splitting the votes is super powerful here, because it means that all these people down here that are weaseling around trying to be snakes, all the blame will get shifted onto them. And that was the plan the entire time. I was laying the foundations for that before the episode, speaking to Frame, saying how you can't trust certain people. Same with EVscape, and we see it here. If you sent 2 votes, we sent 5, so Jimmy should have got 7. Jimmy gets 6, so that means EVscape's like, well, one person's betrayed me. And it won't be SoloMission, because SoloMission is 2 votes. Why would he split his votes up? That makes no sense. And I said, which 5? I'm suspicious. I'm always saying I'm suspicious of people. And then we're being a bit cagey here. I can't tell you. And I'm saying people are going to go rogue. And I'm just like, oh, already feeding into it. And I don't need to tell you, I am also doing the exact same thing with Framed over here. I'm just like, good luck on the votes. You've got Tasty and Zoe voting this week then, right? Yeah? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, I do not trust them. Good time to see if they're in the alliance or not. Yep, it very much is, Mr. Kevin. Of course, things play out like they do. It's so weird that Zoe votes this way and Tasty votes this way, but it just makes it even better for me, because Framed is expecting 8 votes, he gets 7. Evie's expecting 7 votes, he gets 6. And there's 1 vote missing for both of them. And that just means that they're suspecting someone that voted with 1 vote power. Not a 2-vote block like me. Psychologically, instantly, I'm innocent in both of their minds, and I am really in there with both sides of this alliance. And we see it all come together. Framed, we've got 8 votes, I believe. He counts them up. 2 votes from me. Framed, settled, 8 skill specs, Tasty and Zoe. And I'm like, you're missing 1, aren't you? And he's like, yep, Tasty or Zoe. I'm just feeding into this. And he's like, yeah, most likely Zoe. Maybe she's with their alliance. She's supposed to be a double agent. And I'm like, yeah, a double agent. It's like, yeah, maybe so. Confusion to the max. It's perfect. Same with EVscape. It gets announced that he's going in. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's not good. What the fuck? And I'm like, Tasty Zoe, no way it wasn't them. He's running the numbers. Torvesta's got all the power to see who Evie is against. And Evie's going to be right in his ear, give me someone easy. And it's very much true.
Yeah. Because I was literally like, after I went in, I was like, give me Jimmy. I was like, it's a free win, bro.
Yeah, I think people don't necessarily see that the alliances mean that you get a bigger diversity of people in the bannings, because if people just voted who they thought was the best in the game, it would be the same people every fucking week. Yeah, but like Jimmy comes under threat because you go in and your alliance has control.
Yeah. So I remember specifically being so pissed off that I went into this banning because I was sick as a fucking dog. I had COVID and I sat there. I was like, guys, can I just please go to bed? Like, please don't put me in. I was like, please don't put me in the
banning. And then they were like, this is our time.
Yeah. And then they put me in. I hope Super got it on recording, because I didn't record. I remember just coming back into the group chat afterwards and just flaming the fuck out of them. I'm like, oh no, which one of you fucking voted for me?
Oh, good. So EVscape versus Jimmy in their banning. And let me tell you, if I had gone into the banning against either of these players, I would be going home today, because what is a Lynx in old school RuneScape? I didn't even know that was a monster. So I would have been finished. I'm not sure if there was wiki usage allowed. If there was, maybe I would have had a chance. But yeah, would have been brutal on me. I would have lost the both of them. So very, very fortunate to avoid the banning this week. I was fully rooting for EVscape in this banning though. He comes home, brings it first. And look who's there. Me in the chat. Congrats, bro. Welcome home. I needed him to win that right there. But like, I knew he was going to win because he literally made a video on it 1 week before. So it's kind of a stacked banning against Jimmy. Can't lie. So I'm sorry to say, but Jimmy is eliminated, but fits the general theme of we're getting rid of people who are in the strong alliances. That's what I've wanted since week 1, and it's working very, very well. But EVscape's come back here, and it's time for him to find out what actually went down. Remember, there were some shenanigans at the start of this week where Skillspecs was supposedly talking to EV, saying he was going to vote with him. These two were supposedly coming over to this side, saying they were going to vote with Frame. So let's see how that one went down. And it just was the perfect opportunity for me to split the votes. Eviescape comes back, he's like, Skillspecs is the one that fucked me. He said he was going for Jimmy, but he went for Foe. So we had 4 and you're 2. He's added that up to 6 there. But he thinks that Skillspecs went for Foe. But I am the only person other than Will that knows that Will was the one that voted for Foe. So I know Jay is over here and he is lying to Eviescape right now, trying to be a double agent. And I can only know this for sure because of the random Will confession that he sent me. Because the votes don't quite make sense to anybody and it's getting very confusing. People are getting suspicious. Eviescape says his alliance thinks that I'm with the Americans. So his alliance thinks I'm over here. And he's talking about me and him making our own special move. And I said, if I was with the Americans, there would be a huge swing. It was Tasty and Zoe that are snakes. They lost Inferno and panicked. And then he's like, yeah, maybe, but not this week. They voted with us. It's the other side. They got shooters. And then I'm like, that doesn't even make sense. Go back to the drawing board and add things up because you won't be able to make sense of it. I go to bed. Eviescape finds out it was Tasty who voted the other way. And I'm like, I fucking knew these snakes. I was like, oh god. He's been thinking all night long. This is literally the day after, right? It's spilling into the day after. So Evie's giving me more info here and he says, Tasty was supposed to be voting with our alliance but isn't in it and Zoe was the correspondent, which kind of fits with having these 3 down the bottom and their different group chats. And Zoe is now on his side for sure because she leaked the DMs about Tasty voting for Eviescape, which is huge news. And I'm also saying that he can't trust Skillspecs because he didn't vote with him this week. And I say this phrase, people talk with actions, not words. So true. And think about it. Who's had positions of power which have benefited both sides of the alliance? It is me. I'm talking my actions. I am trustworthy. Not trustworthy, not trustworthy, not trustworthy, setting it up perfectly. And of course, the same thing's always going on the other side. This is Framed messaging me saying, Tasty and Zoe didn't vote with us. Doubtcast about all these people down here again. I love to see it. And this is 3 or 4 days later. There are way too many DMs to show. But Framed and Evie individually were messaging me days later trying to figure this out. And I just knew these guys are not going to be able to figure it out. And like they think they get there, but then they don't. And then I just offer them up like potential solutions. And like thinking about it days later, I love it. And he's like, yeah, Skillspecs fits that. And it all fits. If you put Skillspecs in here, that makes sense. Frame, Cell, 8-Sat, Victim, SoloMission, Skillspecs. But now Frame thinks that Tasty didn't vote with him, but he actually did. And it was me that was the missing vote. So doubts cast over everyone, and I love to see it. Again, multiple days later from Eviescape. Now, this is interesting because he suspects me of playing both sides, and that's because Victim messages him with this. These are Victim and Eviescape's DMs. They're talking about me here, and Eviescape says he's not in any alliance because no one trusts him, but you never know with him. And Victim says, I've heard other things that may not agree with that claim, and he's like, for real? So Victim is causing a bit of a stir down here. Why is Victim talking to Eviescape? And yeah, that's potential problems for me coming. But that's the thing with what I've done so far and what people think I've done. I can shut down any accusations. I'm just here like, laugh my ass off. He's just trying to milk you for information. Tell him to show me a pic of somewhere I shouldn't be. I'll wait. I'm not in any group chats, so there's no flies on me, honestly. People speak with voting actions, nothing else, backing up all my actions. Words don't matter. I'm sticking to this line. And then I'm a bit truthful, right? I'm a bit less wary of the American side because they haven't gone for me at all, and Eviescape's side has. And then I'm just saying, I don't want any side to gain too much power. True. And then true. I just want to be floating, getting by in the middle with these other people. But I'll help out Eviescape where need be. I just don't want to be a public ally with anyone. And I'm not. And this is the perfect way to round off this week. I just love this. I send a DM to Soup saying, look what's become of this man. Still waking up to this 3 days later of Eviescape trying to put vote combinations together to make it make sense. And then Soup's like, what I would do to show everyone the votes. I say, I love the suspense. Reckon it looks a little like this myself. I'm just flexing at this point. I send back this list to Soup. And guess what? It is exactly on the money. Only one person knows who everyone's voted for this week. And it's me. Worked out perfectly. So it all leaves us with two very clearly defined sides, a bunch of people in the middle and a bunch of untrustworthy little slippery snakes down the bottom. I mean, yeah, I'm here too, let's be real. But they do have defined sides. I'm going to move Tasty across a bit, seeing as he did actually vote with this side, but still very much tied to Zoe as his like number one point of contact. A great week, a very fun week. I couldn't wait to talk about this week because there was so much drama going on behind the scenes. If you did enjoy, subscribe to this second channel and leave a like. Share it with anyone that you think might like it, and I will see you in week 6. I've survived again. Let's go.